The wind scraped across the dry earth like a blade on bone. Dead Ridge had once been a mining town, its glory stolen long ago by busted silver veins and broken promises. Now it stood still, too still. Even the crows avoided it. At the edge of Main Street, a child's trembling fingers pulled back the slats of a dusty window. Her eyes, wide and too knowing for her years, watched as 4 women, each wrapped tightly in white gauze like embalmed corpses, were marched down the road in single file. They did not scream. They did not struggle. A pale man walked behind them with a rifle. Another led the way, his hat low and boots clean. Sheriff Marston Bell stood tall in front of the courthouse. His duster was black, immaculate, even as dust swirled like spirits around him. His face was handsome once, carved with the kind of bone structure that made women look twice, but now his expression was waxen, eyes cold, lips thin as a blade. He raised a hand, and the procession stopped. "Mark the date," he said aloud, voice calm like church bells. "August 3rd, beauty preserved, rot denied." The 4 women were guided down into the basement of the courthouse. The door closed behind them with a hollow clunk. Then the lock turned. The crowd, what little remained of the town's once bustling folk, stood silently. No one moved. No one wept. Grief had long been buried beneath fear. Inside the sheriff's office, parchment records listed the names of every woman still breathing in Dead Ridge. Many were crossed out. Those left had red ink beside them. Dates, conditions, measurements. In the far corner of the room, a mechanical embalming pump sat silent, its brass fittings clean and polished, waiting. A single carriage rolled into town just after dusk. It made no noise except the click of its weary wheels. From it descended a lone man, tall, lean, slouched. His face was shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. His coat torn at the shoulder, boots worn thin. He carried no rifle, only a satchel and the scent of desert fire. Eli Thatcher hadn't spoken to another soul in 3 days. The wind had been his only companion, and grief his second skin. He stepped into the saloon, where oil lamps burned low, and every eye turned toward him. No music played. The piano was missing keys. A bartender wiped the same glass for the 5th time. Eli moved slowly, like someone accustomed to watching every corner of every room. He sat. A woman with a black eye and cracked lips approached him with a water jug. She poured him a glass without a word. "Ma'am," he said. She flinched. "You don't belong here," she whispered quickly, not looking at him. "Not anymore. You're either with him or against him, and no one's left for the against." He said nothing, only drank. The water was warm and bitter. The bartender spoke next. "You're the first rider in a week. If you're looking for work, forget it. Ain't nothing but death and mummies." Eli looked up. "Mummies?" The bartender snorted. "Ask the sheriff. He'll show you his collection." Someone at the far table laughed nervously. A thin man with a trembling mustache stood up, knocked over a chair, and left in a hurry. Outside, the air grew colder, even though the sun hadn't yet fully set. Eli stepped onto the porch and watched as a buggy carrying a mother and 2 daughters passed by. The mother clutched her girls close, eyes darting from shadow to shadow. A bell rang. Eli's breath caught. Down the street, the courthouse doors opened again, and 2 pale men rolled out a gurney. Upon it lay the stiff form of one of the women from earlier. Her skin, once soft and warm, was now waxen and tight. Her eyes were sewn shut, her mouth sealed. A funeral doll. They didn't bury her. They displayed her. 2 metal rods were driven into the ground, and the woman's body was propped upright for all to see. A plaque at her feet read, "Eternally Beautiful, August the 3rd. Eli looked away. Eli looked away. That night he made camp just outside town, beneath the curve of a broken hill. The wind blew cooler here, but his sleep came slow. Firelight danced on the underside of his hat brim as memories surged like wolves. His wife Clara had burned in a fire started by drunken cattlemen who mistook their house for another man's. His daughter May hadn't made it out either. All he'd found were scorched boots and the melted frame of a music box. Now, Dead Ridge felt like the graveyard of all that was lost, and Sheriff Marston Bell was the gravedigger. In the morning, Eli returned. He found the sheriff in the middle of town, inspecting a line of women who had been summoned to the square. Each stood in silence as one of the sheriff's men measured their arms, their hips, their cheeks. One woman spoke out. "You can't take her. She's barely 16. Sheriff Bell turned. "Young or old, decay begins the same. I'm only giving her a chance to outlive it. She's my daughter. You should be proud. Her beauty will last forever." The woman lunged. Bell's hand flashed, and she hit the ground with a scream. Blood dripped from her nose. Eli didn't move, but he didn't look away either. The sheriff caught his stare. "New in town?" Bell asked, brushing his coat sleeve clean. "Just passin'," Eli said. "You'll want to keep passin', friend, unless you like your women fresh-pressed and gift-wrapped." Eli said nothing. Bell leaned closer. "You got that look about you, the kind that sees ghosts." "I've buried mine already," Eli answered. Bell smiled. "Then you'll fit right in." That evening, Eli walked the town's edge. He found the girl again, the one who had watched her mother disappear. She sat alone, barefoot in the dust, cradling a rag doll with one eye. "You shouldn't be out here," Eli said. She looked up. Her voice was small. "They're coming for my ma next. What's your name?" "Sadie." Eli crouched. "Where is she now?" "Hiding." "Where?" Sadie shook her head. "If I tell, they'll find her faster." He offered her a piece of jerky. She took it, hesitated, then whispered, "Behind the church, in the well house, but only at night. She don't dare move in daylight." Eli nodded. "You done good." The girl looked at him for a long moment. Then, "Are you gonna help?" Eli didn't answer. Later that night he approached the well house. The moon cut jagged shadows across the ground, and coyotes howled in the distance. He knocked twice, then once again. Nothing. He waited. Then the door creaked open a sliver, and a pair of terrified eyes peered through. Eli stepped back, hands raised. "I ain't here to harm you." "You were seen talking to the sheriff," the voice snapped. "I was seen looking. That's different." The woman emerged slowly, cradling a rusty knife. Her arms were bruised, lips cracked. "My name's Eli. I'm no lawman. I lost someone, and I think maybe you have too." She hesitated, then nodded. "They took my sister last week. I don't know if she's dead, but I saw her in the window of that place. She don't blink anymore." Eli looked toward the courthouse. Its windows were dark, but even from here it loomed like a mausoleum. "Why is he doing this?" he asked. "His wife died 5 years back. Disease took her beauty first, then her life. He went crazy. Says he found a way to freeze the rot through old texts, chemicals, and lies. And no one stops him. They tried. The ones who did are up on the hill, wrapped in white and mounted like trophies." Eli stared at the woman, then passed her to Sadie, who now stood at the doorway, clinging to the frame. He looked down. "Get your things," he said. "Tonight we run." But running wasn't so simple. The sheriff's men had increased patrols. Dogs barked every hour. The town had eyes. Before dawn, Eli returned to the saloon. The bartender was gone, so were 3 more women. He found a journal in one of the abandoned rooms upstairs. Its pages were brittle, ink smeared by tears. It chronicled the last days of a woman named Joanna, describing how she once loved the sheriff, how she watched him rot from the inside out. One entry stood out. "He says embalming gives them peace, but the peace I've seen in their eyes isn't rest. It's prison. And I know soon he'll come for me too. When he does, I hope I remember how to scream." Eli closed the journal and stared out the window. The wind had picked up again. That evening, the sheriff called for a gathering in the square. He stood tall before the townsfolk, gloved hands behind his back. "Tomorrow," he said, "we complete the transition. All women who have not been processed must present themselves by dusk. Anyone hiding fugitives will be dealt with accordingly." Two men dragged a young woman from a cellar beneath the general store. Her name was Molly. She had been hiding with her grandmother. The sheriff didn't hesitate. He nodded, and she was led to the preparation house. Her screams echoed across the town. Eli tightened his grip on the reins of his horse. Sadie sat behind him, wrapped in a wool blanket. Her mother, hidden behind the church still, waited for the signal to flee. But Eli knew they wouldn't get far. Not with the law behind them. Not without help. As the sun dipped below the canyon line, a glint of silver caught Eli's eye. On the horizon, dust rose, a cloud born of galloping hooves. And among them, the gleam of something stranger. Diamonds. They were coming, but not for money, not for war, for something older. And maybe, for the first time in a long while, Eli Thatcher dared to hope. The dust reached town before the riders did. A grey-brown cloud, churning low and fast across the dry flats, rolled in like a curtain pulled over the sun. At first, the people of Deadridge thought it was another desert squall. But it moved with rhythm, with intent. 5 horsemen in its heart, cloaked in duster coats and brimmed hats, emerging one by one like ghosts from old war stories. They rode in silence. Each saddle carried not just weapons, but glittering pouches that clinked faintly with every step of the hooves. The led horseman sat tall, his long coat weather-worn and sun-bleached to the color of old bone. Around his neck, a chain glinted beneath his collar and beneath his coat. Diamonds. Not polished, not pristine, but raw and jagged, stones that looked torn from the earth, still weeping. The townspeople froze. Sheriff Marston Bell stepped out of the courthouse, his jaw twitching. He narrowed his eyes as the riders came to a halt in a perfect line across from him, a few yards of dead space between them and the gallows. The lead rider dismounted. He moved with deliberate calm, his boots planting in the dust as if he owned the very ground. "Sheriff," he said. His voice was low, clean, almost cultured. "We heard you've taken an interest in preserving beauty, so we thought we'd bring you something valuable." Bell cocked his head. "And who the hell are you supposed to be?" The man reached into his coat, pulled out a black velvet pouch, and tossed it at Bell's feet. It split open on impact, diamonds scattering across the ground like shards of a fallen star. Gasps rose from the watching crowd. The rider spoke again. "My name's Cassian Wolf. My men and I. Call us the Pale Vultures. We follow decay. And where there's rot, we bury it." Bell's gaze dropped to the diamonds, then flicked back up. "You trying to bribe me?" Cassian smiled faintly. "Briberies for politicians. This is a declaration." He looked around, eyes sweeping over the townspeople, then settling on Eli, who stood off to the side near the saloon, half-shadowed. "Our war's not with you," Cassian continued. "It's with the practice. What you've been doing here, it ends tonight." Bell chuckled. "You think you scare me? I've hung better men than you." One of Cassian's riders, a lean woman with braided black hair and a scar across her cheek, raised a sawed-off shotgun and spoke for the first time. "You hung boys, farmers, drunks, try one of us." The sheriff raised his hand. His men moved forward, rifles drawn. Cassian didn't blink. "That'd be your first mistake. We didn't come here alone. There's eyes in your fields, watchers in your church towers. You kill one of us, you won't sleep again." Bell didn't call the bluff. He simply said, "You've got till dawn to leave, or I hang every child who spoke your name." Then he turned and walked back into the courthouse. The Pale Vultures didn't react. They stood for a moment longer, then turned their horses and rode to the southern edge of town, setting camp where the cactus grew crooked and the coyotes didn't howl. That night, Eli approached. He found Cassian crouched beside a fire, sharpening a long knife with short practice strokes. The others sat nearby, watching, quiet, wary. Cassian looked up. "Eli Thatcher, didn't expect to see you alive." "You know me?" "Not personally, but I knew Clara, and your daughter, May." Eli's blood chilled. "How?" I was there, Cassian said simply. Not during the fire, but before. Clara used to bring food to a mine where my men were imprisoned. You didn't know? No, Eli said quietly. She had more courage than most soldiers, and more sense than any preacher. Eli took a breath, shaken. Why are you here? Cassian's eyes burned with something darker than justice. Because we've seen this before. Towns like this. Men like that. They build shrines to their guilt and call it salvation. He stood and motioned for one of the riders to bring something from their packs. A scroll, wrapped in leather. This, Cassian said, unfurling it, is part of what the sheriff's using. A corrupted version of Egyptian rites mixed with settler superstition. He's not embalming people. He's trapping them, making them trophies. It's not science. It's sickness. Eli stared at the faded symbols. He couldn't read them, but the illustrations, twisted bodies, shrines, the stripping of identity, made his stomach turn. A shadow moved beyond the firelight. From it stepped a figure Eli had seen only in fragments, on the edge of storms, behind trees. Takoda. He was wrapped in deer hide, hair tied with feathers and bone. His face was painted with white streaks across the brow and chin. Silent. Measured. Cassian gestured. Takoda's been tracking the sheriff's reach, says he's been sending wagons east, maybe to start again elsewhere. We can't allow that. Eli looked to the horizon. You planning to kill him? Cassian nodded. And end the curse. Burn every tool, every vial, every text. This town will forget what it became. Then I'm in, Eli said. Takoda walked forward, placed a carved stone in Eli's palm. It was rough, but shaped like an eye. He sees you, Takoda said. Eli looked at Cassian, unsure. Cassian translated. He means you carry the grief of the dead. Let it guide you, not drown you. The next day they moved fast. Cassian led a diversion, riding hard into the northern ridge, drawing the sheriff's men out with gunfire and fire traps. Meanwhile, Eli, Takoda, and the scarred woman, her name was Marin, crept toward the courthouse cellar to scout the embalming chambers. Inside, the air was thick with chemicals and rot. Steel tables lined the walls. Bodies, half-wrapped, some still twitching, lay in unnatural stillness. Eli nearly vomited. One body, covered to the neck, blinked. He rushed forward, peeled away the gauze. It was a woman, barely alive, her skin coated in oil, her lips stitched, her eyes pleaded. Marin worked fast, cutting the threads. She's been under for hours. Another minute and her lungs would have shut down. Eli helped carry her out, but not before Takoda placed a ring of herbs on the main table and lit it with flint. The flames consumed the scrolls in seconds, the fire hissing as it burned years of horror into ash. Outside, the sheriff's men returned early, tipped off maybe. Cassian's group was caught near the dry creek bed, pinned down by riflemen perched in the church tower. Eli and Marin brought the survivor to the saloon, where others now hid, Sadie and her mother among them. The town's quiet rebellion had begun. That night, the pale vultures regrouped in the hills. 2 riders had been wounded, one didn't make it. His name was Josiah, a former preacher who'd turned outlaw after witnessing a lynching ordered by the same type of law the sheriff represented. Cassian spoke beside the fire, voice low. Josiah rode with us for 5 years. He never touched a drink, never stole for greed. He believed in justice, the kind you die for. We bury him tomorrow, but we end this tomorrow night. Takoda stepped forward, drawing a circle in the dirt. In its center he placed one of the sheriff's stolen diamonds. Then, slowly, he crushed it beneath a stone. Curse broken by ash and choice, he said. Eli stared into the fire, listening to the crackling logs. Sadie sat beside her mother, eating quietly. The girl looked older now. Her eyes no longer searched the distance in fear, but with purpose. Later, Marin found Eli alone, cleaning his revolver. You ride well, she said. I lost a lot learning how. She sat beside him, watching the stars. Cassian told me about Clara. What you did after?" "I didn't do enough," he replied. "You're doing it now." Eli glanced at her. "What about you?" She pulled up her sleeve. Burns lined her forearm. "Sheriff Bell tried to preserve me 3 years ago. I escaped. I wasn't going to come back. But Cassian found me drunk in a border town and said, 'There's still fire in you. Want to put it to use?' So I did." They sat in silence a while. Then Cassian's voice rang out. "We ride at dusk, not to fight, to finish." The final plan was simple. Cassian and Marin would draw attention to the town square, staging an open threat to buy time. Meanwhile, Eli and Dakota would slip behind the courthouse through a root cellar entrance and free the last of the women before the sheriff could begin the ceremony. The sheriff had been accelerating his madness. Now he claimed the moon cycle required all women be processed before the next sunrise. He'd even prepared a platform for public demonstration, 20 white sheets draped over the shapes of those already claimed. As the sun began to fall, Cassian mounted his black mare and turned to Eli. "If I fall, make sure they ride free." Eli nodded. "You fall, I'll bring the sky down on him." They clasped arms. Then they rode. The pale vultures stormed into the town square as bells rang. People scattered, doors slammed, and the sheriff emerged with his men, weapons drawn. Marin tossed another pouch of diamonds at his feet. "Here's your legacy, Sheriff. All the beauty you ever needed." Cassian lit a flare and threw it toward the gallows. Flames erupted. Behind the chaos, Eli and Dakota slipped through the cellar. They found a locked room, 5 women inside, including Sadie's aunt. Their eyes widened as Eli broke the lock with a fire axe. Dakota handed each woman a blade. No more cages. As they escaped, the sheriff spotted movement. He broke from the fray and ran toward the building, 2 men with him. Cassian saw. He shouted, "Eli, go!" Eli shoved open the back door. "Run!" Dakota stayed behind, slamming the cellar door shut as shots rang out. Cassian's horse reared as a bullet struck him in the shoulder. He fell hard, but rolled behind cover. Eli, breath ragged, led the freed women toward the southern ridge where horses waited. Sadie and her mother mounted first. Then a shot echoed. Eli turned. Cassian lay bleeding near the gallows. The sheriff stepped forward, revolver raised. "You think you stopped anything?" he hissed. "They'll write songs about me." Marin stood at the front, her hand resting on her holster, face open but sharp. "You all know what's been done here," she said. "What's been allowed, what's been ignored. We didn't come here to run your lives. But Dead Ridge has to choose who it's gonna be now. You can bury the past, or let it rot and grow back." There was silence, then murmurs. An older woman stood. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. "We'll vote. We'll build a council. Women and men. No more hiding. No more idols." Marin nodded. "Then we leave you to it." Another voice called out, "And the diamonds?" All eyes turned to the velvet pouch sitting near the pulpit. Eli stepped forward. "Let them burn," he said. "They weren't born of riches. They were born of death." Dakota placed the pouch in a metal pan, struck a match, and dropped it in. The flames consumed the velvet first, then cracked the diamonds like brittle glass. Smoke curled to the rafters. That night, Eli packed his things. His horse waited near the ridge, saddlebags filled with dried meat and water, and a worn journal, Joanna's, tied with leather cord. He carried no gun now, just a hunting knife at his belt and a harmonica in his coat. Marin found him there, tightening the cinch. "You're heading out?" Eli nodded. "You could stay. They trust you now." "I'm not built for stillness," he said. "Besides, I got a promise to keep." She looked behind him. Sadie stood there, clutching a small bundle of belongings. Her mother watched from a distance, hands wrung together. "She's your shadow now," Marin said. Eli gave a small smile. "Guess I finally stopped running from ghosts." Marin took his hand, squeezed it once, hard. "If you ever ride back through, you'll find this place changed, or burning again." Eli chuckled. "You've got a gift for optimism." She laughed softly, then turned and walked away. As the sun rose, Eli, Sadie, and her mother began the slow climb up the mountain path that led west. The road was rough, lined with dry brush and the occasional skull of an animal long dead, but it was open, untouched, and that was something. They traveled in silence for miles, the only sounds the creak of saddle leather and the occasional bird call. As they crested the first ridge, Sadie tugged Eli's coat. "Where are we going?" He pointed. "Northwest. There's a place I heard of. Ridge Hollow. Fertile land. Clean water. People trying to build something honest." "Will they let us in?" "They'll let you in. Me? I'll stay close enough to watch." Sadie frowned. "But you helped." Eli didn't answer. He looked ahead, jaw tight. His silence said everything. At dusk, they made camp near a dry creek bed. A fire crackled between 3 stones, and the stars bled slowly into the sky. Sadie's mother, whose name was Mary, rubbed ointment on her feet and winced. Eli handed her a wrapped bundle. "For your ribs." She nodded her thanks. After a time, Sadie asked him to play something. He took the harmonica from his coat and stared at it. He hadn't played since before the fire, before Clara, but tonight his hands didn't shake when he lifted it to his lips. The tune was simple, melancholy, but it carried on the wind like a farewell that didn't need words. As it faded, Mary spoke for the first time in hours. "Why'd you come to Dead Ridge?" Eli thought a moment. "Didn't plan to. I was running. Thought I was done with fighting." Mary looked at the stars. "And now?" "Now I'm riding toward something." She gave a quiet nod. "Cassian would have liked you. I didn't know him long enough." "Didn't have to. Men like that. One moment's enough." They sat in silence a while longer before turning in. The fire burned low and the night deepened. Eli couldn't sleep. He stared at the stars, letting their cold light fill the spaces between his thoughts. Cassian had once said redemption wasn't about finding peace. It was about making sure others didn't suffer the same fate. Eli wasn't sure he believed in redemption, but he believed in choices, and for the first time in years, he felt like he'd made one that mattered. In the morning, the trail would split. One path toward Ridge Hollow, the other deeper into the wild. He'd walk Sadie and Mary to the gates, but he'd take the wild road. Because there were other towns like Dead Ridge, other sheriffs, other children hiding behind barrels, hoping someone would do what their fathers never did. Eli stood as the first light touched the rocks, casting long shadows westward. He looked at the woman and the girl, sleeping beside the fire. Then he looked at the road, and he smiled, small, weary, but real. By the time they woke, he'd already saddled the horses. They rode in silence. The dust followed. The past stayed buried behind them, and ahead, the trail shimmered under the rising sun. In a land of scorched dreams and cursed gold, one man chose to carve a new story, not in stone, but in every step he left behind. Not a hero, not a ghost, just a rider no longer running. If this story gripped your soul like dust on saddle leather, subscribe for more powerful tales of survival, redemption, and fate in the Wild West. Like if you felt the weight of their choices. Comment below, what would you have done in Dead Ridge? And don't ride off just yet. More unforgettable journeys are coming every week. Because in the West, every silence has a story, and every shadow rides with a past.